What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, we're good. We're good. Uh, Test it out and see how we're doing. So off stream, I went ahead and switched it over from the payload deployment to deploying it on Vercel. So what we're gonna be doing today is really just gonna be a learning experience for me. I'll just be trying to set up payload and basically just seeing how it works. Probably won't get much done today. Make sure I'm front and center. Yeah, I probably won't get much done today. I'll just be figuring out how to use this CMS. I've never used a CMS before. I've only built one Next.js project, so this is why it's really taken so long. Some of these technologies I've never used before, like Motion. Never used Motion before. Next.js, I've only used that on one other project. And Payload, never used it. Never used the CMS before. I'm going to be using Stripe, never used it before. So this entire project is just a big learning experience for me. I probably won't be done with this project for a long time. Maybe like a month or 2 months. Like it literally took me 5 hours to make the header. Well, I mean, I do kind of have an excuse with my typing kind of slowing me down, but still, it's gonna take me a while. So let's go ahead and get started. Right, I know it works in collections, right? So you have these collections. You have one called media, right? And you access this quote unquote media, right? So collections refer to a collection of data, basically. So what this is basically saying, right? To access media, you go to whatever domain you're using, right? If you're on localhost, it'll be localhost/media, and then you don't really know what you use as some sort of like identifier, right? I have to go look at the docs, but then they have like these properties: access. I'm sure this is okay. So access, admin, create, delete, read versions, unlock. So I'm guessing you can only get a whatever media you upload, right? So it kind of acts like as like a storage too, right? So you can set up authentication. You can set up authentication. You can set up storage. They have like a thing where you can host a database. but you do have to pay monthly for it. Right? I just hosted mine through Supabase. I do have some experience with Supabase. Right? Not a lot, but do have some experience with Supabase. Right? And then for each one of these medias, you have these fields, right? So each media, right, each picture that you upload, right, has a name, which is, wait, what does that actually mean? Okay, I guess that's what it is, right? Because it says type, right, and it would be text. I'm guessing this is going to be like a source, right? So it's not going to be actual media, and then it's required, right? And then upload is true. Customize the handling of incoming file uploads. Let's go look at users. Okay, email added by default and add more fields as needed, right? So if I do go into my Supabase database, right? So it automatically connects to my Supabase database for me and creates an entire table called the users, right? So if I go Ace Braids and then go to my table editor, you can see it made media, it made users. I logged in as an admin already. And then if I were to actually npm run dev, if I were to npm run dev and go to this site, oh, also off stream. No, I think I did that on stream. Yeah, I did that on stream last night. No email adapter provided. Email will be written to console. Is it in my console? Download React Dev Tools for a better development experience. You can see everything is the same except so basically that old repo, I completely deleted it because it's kind of hard to migrate over the payload without using their specific command, which creates an entire new Next.js project and adds payload into it, right? So whenever you run that command, it creates all these different files, right? It creates a prettier npmrc, yarnrc. It creates a .env, creates a payload config, which basically tells payload what collections I want to use, the editor I want to use, so the lexical editor. I don't really know what that is. It takes in a secret, which is in my environment variables, and then it takes in a database, and it uses a Postgres adapter, and then you pass it your process, your database URI, which I got from my Supabase. I'm not going to show it, but I guess it doesn't matter because you guys don't have my password. But yeah, basically got it from here, and I have to pay $25 a month to for IPv4 compatibility. Right? Because you have to use direct connection, but off the rip, direct connection doesn't have IPv4 capabilities. It only has IPv6. So I had to pay $25 for that, or $29. But that's nothing. I already talked to Kate about it. She said she doesn't mind. She can make that $29 from one client. So it's not much. It creates this front end folder for you. It creates this payload folder for you. You're not really supposed to really go in this folder. You create your own pages and stuff like that in the front end folder. I don't really know what this my route is. Payload equals await get payload. Yeah, find collection users. And then returns response.json. Am I calling that anywhere? In my page, am I calling that? Payload.auth. See, there's just a lot I have to learn about this. Like this was created on its own. Like this entire piece down here. So if I go to the admin panel, and it should make me log in, or it might not make me log in. I don't know. Let's just see. Yep, it's gonna make me log in. Yep, and you can see we have our users right here. You can create a new user. And then we have our media right here, and you can add new media. All right, so create new media, select file, or paste your URL. And then there's these other things called globals, right? So these are for like reusable things, right? So you're gonna have multiple users, right? You may want to display a user profile or whatever, or you may want to display a profile picture, which would be in media, which you would, fetch for a user and then check for their profile picture, and then check media for that profile picture by ID or whatever, right? And it uses Drizzle as an ORM to access the database. Right. I've used Prisma in the past. Never used Drizzle before. Sure, they're pretty similar. Shouldn't be that hard. Just different syntax. But other than collections, there are these things called globals, right? Which are like one and done type things, right? So let's say you want to create a page, right? And on that page, you're going to be displaying content, right? That's a one and done type thing, right? Versus users, where you have multiple users, right? I would create like a landing page, right? And in that landing page, I would have, I think they're called blocks. But you would pull the content from the landing page and then display it on the page. And the reason I'm doing this is so that my girlfriend has a easy UI that she can interact with, so that she doesn't have to ask me to constantly update it in the code base. She can just go in and change it, unless she has a drastic change. Like in the future, we want to add course material and like products that she can sell on there, right? Maybe some sort of hair, or I don't know, maybe some sort of like, I don't even know, combs, picks, I don't know. So I'm gonna watch this video and kind of see how.
There's a hero, which is like this thing, and then it renders blocks, which are like the layout building components. And it's really important to fully understand this. And for that, I'm going to pull up Figma and I'm going to show you kind of like a design document, like a how you would go about designing a website for Payload. What we like to do, this is a website that my agency designed a long time ago, but it has the same principles in mind. Everybody knows how this part works, right? You have all the page layouts, and you have a beautiful website in Figma, and it looks great. And there's all kinds of variety, layout variety. There's different page templates. It looks different. Like here's a simple template with a tile grid and a call to action, whatever. But these are not actually hard-coded layouts. These are made up of heroes and layout blocks. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so let's just, scrolling through, there's all kinds of variety here. Everybody knows how that part works. But the magic comes in when you actually go to like kind of disseminate the different pieces that can be reused. So you can see we have heroes and then we have layout blocks. Heroes are like the first thing on the page. I don't know why it's called hero. I really don't. But it's the first thing on the page, does a lot of work. Mobile, desktop, whatever. And then we have a high impact content grid. And then we have a medium impact with a couple different varieties, whatever. This one's got an image. Then we've got a form, right? So if you have a page that needs a form, like a landing page or something. Then we have the low impact hero, which is just text. And then we have a very simple hero, right? So heroes are like the first thing on the page. And then we have layout blocks. And layout blocks are like, here's a content layout block. You can choose which columns you want, 2/3, 1/3, 3 columns, 4 columns, whatever, dark mode. And then we have a content grid. These are all the layout building blocks. So each one of these things will be represented in Payload, and it will be represented on the front end with a React component. And so you have the hero and the layout blocks. And that's what I showed you here. This renders the hero. It's fully typed coming from Payload. I'll get back to that in a second. And then you have blocks. And the blocks will iterate over all the blocks that the admin chose, and then it will output the component that corresponds to that specific block. So over in Payload, going here, you see we have tabs that line up directly to those two things. This is a really good way to build websites. If you build it like this, then you don't have to hard code templates. Going back to like this like overview page, it would be a nightmare if you had to hard code all these different layouts with all these different options. Rather, build each individual block and then let your admins compose them however they want. These are very explicitly designed blocks, but these pages are not templates. They're built with layout blocks. And if you can design like this, and if you can translate into controls that are easily expressed in a simple to use CMS, that's how you build a maintainable website. These are not templates. So we've got the hero, that's this. And then below that hero, we have the layout blocks, which are these. So here's a content block, that's this. Then we have a media block, and I can go here and I have a different field. I can swap this out. Let's choose another one. My team, I don't know if you heard that in this video, but they just literally screamed in the background in the office. That's Jake. What a guy. But then we have the archive, and then we have the call to action. And you can see that you can drag and drop these blocks in different orders, and it just instantly will work. Everything just works. But you build it with this mentality, and you translate it into these controls. So how does that work in the code side of the world? Well, we have these two components. But before we get to the front end, let's look at Payload. So let's go to the pages collection. We've got authentication, we've got our access control, we've got some controls here I'll get back to in a later video. But here's the layout field. This is the layout builder where you can choose from the blocks that you have registered. So the website template gives you these 5 blocks. And if I go back over here and I go to content, get rid of that quick, click on add layout, here's the 5 blocks. If you added more in this array, they would appear here for your use. And each block has 2 parts. It's got the fields. So here's the call to action block. That's this one right here. This block right here is really simple. All it has is a rich text field, and it has a link group, which allows you to specify a couple links, 1 link, whatever. And that's this button. So this is the payload side. Remember I said there's 2 parts to every block. There's the payload config for the block. Really simple. We have a rich text field, and then we have a shared link group field that we can reuse. And then you have the front end component. So there's the back end and the front end. The back end shows what fields to edit for this block, and the front end uses Tailwind and React Server components to render the content of that block. So the fields in Payload, field 1, field 2, those correspond to props here in your React component. And these props are fully typed. So you have end-to-end type safety out of the box with Payload just like that. And that way, when your editors go and compose blocks, they have a certain set of controls for a call to action block, and they have a certain set of controls for a media block, and content has columns, whatever you want to do. but you can basically craft any design system that you want. And the same thing goes for the hero, except for we kind of do it a different way for the hero. We have a type where you select which type, and then based on whatever type you select, you get different fields. It's conditional logic. So if I click on low impact here, you'll see that this one kind of looks a little bit different. If I click on high impact, it goes back here, and I can go to medium impact. This is just to show you the template, like the approach. You don't need to keep these hero styles. You can delete all of it. Like for example, this website has different hero styles. So we would have to go through, and if I can scroll up and find these, yeah, right here. We would want to build a React component for this hero template. We'd have to build a React component for this one, and then a React component for this one. And each one of these would have the front end React component as well as the back end payload config. And then how that looks in code, if we go back over to the pages collection, I showed you that we have tabs. You don't need that either. It's nice, I think. Hero, content, SEO, just the organization is nice. But the hero is inside of a tab, and it's one field. So if I go look at this field, it's a group, and it has a type field. The type is where you set all your different hero options. And then based on whatever you want, you can show and hide different fields based on whatever type it is. And then on the front end, when we go to render that hero, you see we just spread the hero as the props. So this component takes the page hero props. We're importing that page type. Payload gives you TypeScript types for everything. So if I show you, here's our page type, here's our hero, you can reuse this type. Payload automatically generates this in the background, and it's fully typed. So this hero has that type that corresponds exactly to what we chose. And then we have the fields that could be potentially on that hero. So when we go to render that, we can go in here and we say, okay, let's get the type from the props. And we know that the type is there because we've typed it. So I can actually hover this and it will say what type it is. And then we grab whatever hero it is off of this keyed object. So like here's the 3 types, right? And based on this type, we can grab the hero to render and then spread the props into it. And it will dynamically render whichever hero we have selected. This is a very extensible pattern. Imagine if you wanted to fill this up with your own heroes, you would just, like, my new hero is my new hero component. And then you're done. So the same thing works with the blocks. If you go into blocks, you can see that blocks are going to map over. Like the blocks in Payload, this is an array. So it's an array of blocks. If I show you the API over here, let's see, close up hero. There's an array of layouts, right? The first layout is content. The second layout is media block. The third layout is archive. The fourth layout is CTA. And so what this component does, this render blocks component, if you have blocks, if it's an array, then we're going to map over the blocks. We're going to get the block type, and it's, again, fully typed. And then we get the block that corresponds with this block type off of this little map that we made up here. So in order to add new layout blocks, you just add them to this list. Then we get the block off the map type, or the mapped components up here, and we render it. And there you go. So that's it. And with that, imagine you have, like, when you launch the site, you have 6 blocks maybe, or 7, but you want to add additional blocks, additional Legos in your Lego blocks, whatever, as you build into the future. You just add them. You don't have to change anything else. The other ones are bulletproof. Those ones exist. You've already built them. You've already tested them. Adding additional blocks and adding features to your CMS is done in a very extensible way that you can maintain into the future. Okay, so now I just want to do a quick speed round through a couple of the bigger features that we've built into this template, and then in later videos in this series we'll go through and talk about each one of these in further depth. But the first thing I just want to quickly shine a light on is that this entire website template is statically rendered, and you should be doing that wherever you can with Next.js websites in specific. You can opt into further complexity in the future, but I think that statically rendering is a very good thing to do. So right here, our page, this is a server component like I showed, and we're using this little utility that we made to query a page by slug. So we're grabbing the slug from the params, and that's from here, right? Query by the page slug. This is a function that we're using React Cache to deduplicate, because We actually use this function in two places in this one file. We use it for the page, and then we also use it for the metadata. And we don't want to query twice, so by wrapping it with React Cache, that will deduplicate these queries on a request by request basis. And it just makes things a little bit snappier. But we're getting the page, basically. We're returning the page, and from there, we can actually use it in both places simultaneously. And that page is fully typed. It's all TypeScript. But the important part here is this generate static params function. This is what allows us to statically render this whole page, right? The whole thing from this point on is going to be saved as a static HTML snapshot. So when your users go to these pages in your browser, you're going to download a static HTML file rather than downloading like an entry point and then having to make database queries to fill up the HTML with dynamic data every single time, making queries.
That's what I was going to do.
Right. So this generate static params does something similar to this right here, but it actually gets the first 1,000 pages. Draft false, we only want the published to generate statically. Get 1,000 pages and select only the slug. We don't need to select all the data for 1,000 pages. We can select just the slug. This is very performant. It works on the database level, so it's going to make a tiny little query. It's still going to give you a lot of JSON because you're taking 1,000 pages, but right here, it'll be typed automatically. And then what we can do is we can just return, okay, we don't want to do the home page. That's going to be statically rendered separately over here. But we do want to map over all the slugs and return the static parameters for each page. And in this case, it's just the slug property that we need to map to. But right here with this, when you deploy your website, it's going to be statically rendered and it's going to be blazing fast. Get good Lighthouse scores, and Google will smile on you for being an adult and making a performant website. But outside of that, the same practice works for posts as well. So if we go over here, you'll see the same idea. We're going to generate static params for posts, and it's got a slug field. So we're doing slug again right there, just like that. And we've deduplicated with query post by slug instead of query page by slug, right? So same idea, but you're going to have to wire this stuff up. Might as well just have us do it for you. And then from there, the important part when you're statically rendering is to make sure that when an admin saves a page, they can instantly see their changes, right? And you know, I showed you that we do have the preview link over here, but the preview link is only one part. What if like the CMO was just browsing on their phone and they went to the website and they were like, hey, I thought you updated this, but it's not updated. You don't want to tell them, oh, sorry, it's statically rendered and you're not going to be able to see it for 10 minutes until it revalidates. No, forget about that. Payload, this website template in specific, comes with everything you need for on-demand revalidation, and it's really simple.
I don't like the way they do this. Most people aren't going to get the website template. Most people are going to build it from scratch. So why don't you show yourself building it from scratch? I think that's the most realistic. No, nobody's going to want to use your template, especially with their first time learning it. They want to learn it. They don't want to just change some values and not understand. Like, you got to teach us how to do it. Because like with this video, I'm not really learning. Like, I'm not really learning. I might as well just go to the docs. And the thing is, their docs aren't really that good, honestly. They're not that good at all. Like, at all, bro. Like, what is Payload? Okay, a full admin panel using React server client components matching the shape of your data. I guess what I just need to do is I just need to spend this whole stream just reading through these docs. I'll stay up to like 2 a.m. just reading through these docs. I guess that's just what I have to do. Because, I mean, I kind of understand it. Like, you have your globals, you have your, right, interacts with your database. But the thing is, what's being stored in the database and what's being stored in the admin panel? Is it all being stored in the database? Like, when I run payload.find, where is that going? Is that going to Postgres? I don't understand. But that's what I'm gonna have to do. I'm just gonna have to read through these docs. All right, let's get started. Okay, so full admin panel. using React server slash client components, matching the shape of your data and complexity extensible with your own React components. Automatic database schema, okay, including direct database access and ownership with migrations, transactions, proper indexing, and more. Instant REST, GraphQL, and straight to database Node.js APIs. Okay, it comes with authentication, which can be used in your own apps. A deeply customizable access control pattern. File storage and image management tools like cropping slash focal point selection. Okay, I could have used that in my I got next. I'm still struggling with that image cropper. Live preview, see your front end render content changes in real time as you update, and lots more. Instant backend superpowers. Where does this link go? Oh, it just goes. Okay. No matter what you're building, Payload will give you backend superpowers. Your entire Payload config can be installed in one line into an existing Next.js app, and is designed to catapult your development process. Payload takes the most complex and time-consuming parts of any modern web app and makes them simple. Open source, deploy anywhere, including Vercel. It's fully open source with an MIT license, and you can self-host anywhere that you can run a Node.js app. You can deploy serverless to hosts like Vercel right inside your existing Next.js application. There are no click ops, as in clicking around in an admin panel to define your schema. In Payload, everything is done the right way, code first. This is what I like. That's what I like right there. I don't want everything to be done in the admin panel. I want to be able to programmatically do things. Code first and version control like a proper backend. But once developers define how Payload should work, non-technical users can independently make use of its admin panel to manage whatever they need to without having to know code whatsoever. Okay, use cases. Payload started as a headless content management system. But since we've seen our community leverage Payload in ways far outside of simply managing pages and blog posts. It's grown into a full stack TypeScript app framework. Large enterprises use Payload to power significant internal tools. Retailers power their entire storefronts without the need for headless Shopify. And massive amounts of digital assets are stored plus managed within Payload. Of course, websites large and small still use Payload for content management as well. Engineering, on the flip side, engineers say the opposite. This is a big problem that is yet to be solved, even though we have countless CMS options. Payload has restored a little love back into the dev. This is why I chose this. I've heard a lot of good things about Payload. If you're building a website and your front end is on Next.js, then Payload is a no-brainer. Get started with Payload as a CMS using our official website template, enterprise tool, headless commerce. I think this is just Payload concepts. Payload config is central to everything that Payload does. It allows for the deep configuration of your application through a simple and intuitive AI. The Payload config is a fully typed JavaScript object that can be infinitely extended upon. Let's go read this. Payload is a config-based code-first CMS and application framework. The Payload config is central to everything that Payload does, allowing for deep configuration of your application through a simple and intuitive AI. I don't really like the filler words. Just explain what it is. Explain what it does. I don't want to hear all these filler words. It's central to everything that you do. Like, what is that, though? Allowing for deep configuration of your application. What kind of deep configuration? Everything from your database choice to the appearance of the admin panel is fully controlled through the payload config. From here, you can find fields and localization, enable authentication, and configure access control, and so much more. Yeah. Payload config is strongly typed and ties directly into payload's TypeScript codebase. This means your IDE, such as VS Code, will provide helpful information like type ahead suggestions while you write your config. First, determine which database you'd like to use, then use collections or globals to define the schema of your data through fields. Okay, so I'm going to go to my payload.config. You can see I have an admin, auto login, so what I'll do is I'll toy with this, right? Let me just auto login. We'll say email, and I'm gonna disable my screen if it'll work. There we go. I'm gonna go into my .env. I'm going to put in admin email. This is gonna be and then in here I could just bring that back, and I brought it back while still on my .env. That was dumb of me. I'll say process dot env dot admin underscore email, and I'll say password process dot env dot admin underscore password, and refill only username. So I should be able to come in here now, come into my admin, and then auto login. I should be able to just come back to here, and let's try the Try the autofill. Is that not what it's called? Pre-fill only. Let's set that to true. Right. Let's see what happens. So I should be able to come into this admin panel. Let's try to Control C, and then we'll npm run dev again. See what happens there. I'm pretty sure pre-fill only means it only fills it in. It doesn't actually sign you in. It just signs me in. So let's go take a look at the collections to see how they're structured. All right, so you have users, which is type of create, delete, read, access, and 21 more. Let's go take a look at the docs. Oh, hooks allow you to create your own side effects during specific elements of the document lifecycle. So before you read, after you read, after you create, before you create. Okay. Authentication provides a secure, portable way to manage user accounts out of the box. Payload authentication is designed to be used in both the admin panel as well as your own external applications. And then as we need these things, we'll go down the list, right? So right now, I kind of want to look at the hooks. Right, hooks allow you to execute your own side effects during specific events of the document lifecycle. They allow you to do things like mutate data, perform business logic, integrate with third parties or anything else, all during precise moments within your application. With hooks, you can transform Payload from a traditional CMS into a fully fledged application framework. There are many use cases for hooks, including modify data before it is read or updated, encrypt and decrypt sensitive data, integrate with a third-party CRM like HubSpot or Salesforce. I don't really know what that is. Send a copy of uploaded files to Amazon S3 or similar. Process orders through a payment provider like Stripe. Send emails when contact forms are submitted. Okay. Track data ownership or changes over time. There are 4 main types of hooks. Root hooks. I'm guessing this just brings me down to right here. Root hooks are not associated with any specific collection, global, or field. They are useful for globally oriented side effects, such as when an error occurs at the application level. To add root hooks, use the hooks property in your payload config. You have after error is triggered when an error occurs in the payload application. So I'm guessing these are just hooks that can be used wherever. And then there are hooks that are specific to collections, globals, or fields. Okay. can I specify my own fields though? That's the question. Like, can I create my own fields just like how I can create my own blocks or um, collections and stuff like that? The error that occurred, custom context passed between hooks. The GraphQL result object available if the hook is executed within a GraphQL context. I have to go learn about GraphQL. I don't really know much about that. I know it has something to do with APIs. I need to go learn. Got a lot to learn, man. Async versus synchronous. All hooks can be written as either a synchronous or asynchronous function. Choosing the right type depends on your use case, but switching between the two is as simple as adding or removing the async keyword. If the hook should modify data before a document is updated or created and it relies on asynchronous actions such as fetching data from a third party, it might make sense to, okay, I see. If your hook simply performs a side effect such as updating a CRM, it might be okay to define it synchronously. So the payload operation does not have to wait for your hook to complete. Server only execution. Hooks are only triggered on the server and are automatically excluded from the client-side bundle. This means that you can safely use sensitive business logic in your hooks without worrying about exposing it to the client. Nice. That's what I like to hear. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this. I'll close my dashboard. I'll close out of here. Oh, also I went ahead and deployed to resell. I bought her a domain name, $11. aceofbraidscape.com. It's currently live. This version still has the old styles and stuff like that. So this little utility bar isn't supposed to be this thick. But if you come down to the preview version, I don't know. Did I create this little custom animation? I think I created this today. Did I create this today? I don't know, but I created a little custom little animation whenever you click or tap on mobile. I think it's pretty cool. Okay. Go ahead and close that. And we're just going to keep reading through this. All right. Payload provides a secure, portable way to manage. All right, we're going to go ahead and look through, or I guess we'll look through collection hooks first. Collection hooks are hooks that run on documents within a specific collection. They allow you to execute your own logic during specific events of the document lifecycle. To add hooks to a collection, use the hooks property in your collection config. Okay. All collection hooks accept an array of synchronous or asynchronous functions. Okay. Auth enabled hooks. So before login, after login. Wish it would show like a real example though. On the field level to isolate hook logic to specific fields. Oh, pretty cool. Close that. And I'll keep that open. All collection hooks except an array before operation. Before operation can be used to modify the arguments that operations accept or execute side effects that run before an operation begins. Custom context passed between hooks. Let me see what this is. The context object is used to share data across different hooks. This persists throughout the entire life cycle of a request and is available within every hook. By setting properties to rec.context, you can effectively share logic across multiple hooks. Huh. Okay. Okay. I see. So basically what it's doing, this is changing data and then it's assigning it to the customer data property within context. And then after the change, it'll take that context and then create a to do. And I'm guessing it would be to call the customer, and then it passes in the customer data. Okay, that's pretty simple. Let's say you have an after change hook and you want to do a calculation inside the hook, as the document ID needed for the calculation is available in the after change hook but not in the before change hook. Once that's done, you want to update the document with the result of the calculation. So before the change or after the change, you update the payload, right? The collection, the doc. What is the doc? What is that? So this is after change. No, what was that? Yeah, that was after change. Takes in doc, after change, doc. The resulting document after changes are applied. I'm guessing this is referring to a single document, or is this referring to whenever you within a specific collection? Okay, so there's documents are within collections. Okay, and then right, bad example. This is a bad example. You update it, updating the same slug as the collection in an after change. Create an infinite loop. Instead of the above, we need to tell the after change hook to not run it again if it performs the update and thus not update itself again. We can solve that with context. Okay. Yeah, so this is, well, that makes sense, right? You're updating a collection, right? And then this would just run after the change. And then after the change, if in the after change, you change it again, it'll just, yeah, it creates an infinite loop. Okay. All right. So in here, instead, you take in const or context, the document, and the request. And you check if context.trigger after change is equal to false. Where is that being set though? Oh, okay. Set a flag to prevent from running again. Okay. All right. So basically what this does, it updates it and it sets to the trigger after change in the context. It says context equals this object, which includes trigger after change, and sets it to false. And it says, you could just say if not context.trigger after change, return. The default TypeScript interface for context equals key string unknown. If you perform more strict typing in your project or when authoring plugins for others, you can override this using the declare syntax. So declare module payload, create a new interface that merges your additional fields with the original one. So export interface request context extends original request context. You'll say my object will equal a string. Okay, that's what context is. So the whole thing that I need to remember is that I can do things with the data that I get back or that I give whenever I update a document or read or create or get. Guess get would be read. Okay. So that's what hooks are. Then there's more hooks. There's global hooks. There's before validate. So what is before validate? Runs before the update operation. It allows you to add or format data before the incoming data is validated server side. Please do note that this does not run before client side validation. If you render a custom field component in your front end and provide it with a validate function, the order that validation will run is validate runs on the client. If successful, before validate runs on the server, and then validate runs on the server. Okay, the global in which this hook, the context, original doc, the document before changes are applied, and the incoming data passed through the operation. Okay, okay. I get that. I get that. That's pretty simple, right? Then there's field hooks. And I'm sure these are pretty simple. Okay, before duplicate, when duplicating a document, it may be used when documents having the same exact properties may cause issue. This gives you a way to avoid duplicate names on unique required fields or when external systems expect non-repeating values on the document. This hook gets called before validate and before change hooks are called. Okay. Alrighty. So that's pretty simple to understand, right? It's just using the side effects, right? So before validate, before change, right? Before you update, before you read something, after you read something, after you change something, before you change something. Pretty simple, right? It's pretty simple. Now you have access control. Okay, this access control determines what a user can and cannot do with any given document, such as read, update, etc., as well as what they can and cannot see within the admin panel. Let's take a look at this. Learn about that.
Hey everyone. Today we're going to go over what I think is one of Payload's most
Okay, and you can change read using find one global operations, update using global, because globals are globals. There's only one of them, right? Versus documents are collections, right? I'm sure if I go to collections, let's go back. That's where it was. Request object containing the currently authenticated user. Ah, okay. Okay. And like what comes in the user object though? Look at the request though, yo. That's just Indian. I thought it was something specific to Just a normal request object. I know I'm scratching a lot. Got this new medication because I've been really sick. And I think I'm allergic to it. But it makes me itch everywhere. At my face, my like lower legs, but everywhere else. Like if I showed you my chest, it's like full of like bumps and scratches. Alrighty, so I understand access control. Determines what a user can and cannot do with any given document, such as read, update, etc., as well as what they can and cannot see within the admin panel. In the admin panel, Payload dynamically generates a beautiful, fully typed safe interface to manage your users' data. Retrieving data. I think I might just use the local API. What is localization? Let's look at that. So I'm not gonna want any localization. I think it's safe to say we're just gonna use English. Let's go look at authentication. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm getting pretty sleepy. I'm at the point where I'm not even really taking all this in that I'm reading, but I think I understand it a lot more. This. Alrighty. We're gonna go ahead and call it for the night. Didn't really get anything done, but we learned a bit, right? So tomorrow we'll be able to, get started on this hero section. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. Peace out. I'm gone.